Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IS English. Today we are going to discuss important news and articles from our favorite The Indian Express newspaper. So let us start our today's discussion. The first article that we are going to cover is the yesterday's left out article about the heavy rainfall that has happened in Himalaya. Now we know states like Himachal Pradesh, states like Uttarakhand for the past few weeks have witnessed a lot of rainfall, as a consequence of which it led to floods, it led to landslides. So what is the geography of this region, particularly the upper reaches of Himalaya, which promotes heavy rainfall, and how these heavy rainfall have been altered frequently due to the phenomena of human induced infrastructural changes as well as climate change. So that we are going to understand in our today's discussion. This is a very beautiful article. Okay. Now this is relevant from primarily geographical perspective and also from environment and disaster management perspective. So we'll cover this first article in great detail, and before the end of the first article there is also a mains question. So I want you all who want to write answers to please write the answers. You can submit to me those answers in the group. I'll help you understand what your answers are good about and what your answers lack. Okay. In the second article, we are going to understand freedom of press in India and how it qualifies against the criteria of defamation. Now, this news article appeared because of the context of hearing that is going on with respect to Adani Enterprises. Now, some of the reporters in India, they wrote an article which allegedly was defamatory as far as the Adani Enterprise is concerned. So, they went to court, asking the court to allow themselves to put this article back into burner. Now, what actually happened? The court needs to balance both of these factors. In India, it is a democratic country, and most of the time, press has been highlighted as the fourth pillar of democracy, and you need freedom to be given to journalists so that they can report on a matter without any risks attached to it. But you also need to understand these reports can't be false in nature. You can't defame someone else. You can only give an incriminating article based on certain facts, based on certain truth. So how these two are balanced, we'll figure out in our today's discussion, which is relevant from polity syllabus as it deals with matters of fundamental right under Article 19. Now, the third article, which is a very big development that happened yesterday, that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, they signed a defense pact, and how this defense pact impacts countries in the Middle East, in the West Asian region, and how it impacts India, that is a matter of our today's discussion. Now, this is relevant from IR portion of the syllabus, which is given in the GS paper 2 perspective, right? So, we'll cover the third article in great detail. In the fourth article, we are going to understand why does Indian Army needs to upgrade its radar. And this article is in news because of the experiences that the Indian Armed Forces had due to Operation Sindoor. Now, what happened during Operation Sindoor, that Pakistani Armed Forces as well as militants, they used or they tried to use drones. Now, Indian radars and Indian air defense system were successful when it comes to countering of those drones. But going forward, Army and Air Force, they have realized that drone warfare will be a big part of any conflict that happens in the future. So, automatically the radar system needs to be upgraded so that they are not just able to find out enemy aircrafts, but they are also able to find out and tackle enemy drone systems. So this is why Army needs an radar upgrade. So what is the current radar system? How radar system actually works? Why is there a need of upgradation? Everything we'll cover in our today's discussion. And this is relevant from GS paper 3, that is subject of science and technology. And in the last article, we are going to cover EU's new strategy document, how the strategy document puts a more focus on countries like India. Now, you need to understand both India and EU, they are facing problems with respect to China, they are facing problems with respect to US. So now, for a big market like India and for a big investing group like EU, both of these entities need each other. So what is the what is the win-win situation in these two? We'll figure out in our today's discussion. Okay, so this last article is also relevant from IR perspective, but sometimes you can also see when it comes to EU is a trading bloc or an economic union. So we also have to figure out the economy behind it. So that is GS paper 3. So these are the 5 articles that we are going to cover in our today's discussion, the notes of which will be available on this Telegram channel, ATS Live. So if you haven't downloaded the notes yet, you can go ahead and download it after the end of the session and also subscribe to it if you still haven't. Good morning, Kanchan, Yashi, Anuj. I am feeling somewhat better. In the morning when I woke up, well, yesterday I was on my bed almost the entire time. So I first of all got a lot of bored. So to get out of boredom, I had no other option but to continue work. But also I'm feeling relatively better as compared to yesterday. So I am in a position of teaching you. So no need to worry. Okay, thank you for all of your concerns. It was you and Veera Pandyan's medicine that helped me take this session today. Okay. Good morning, Baga, Gagan, Gaurav, Yashi, Kanchan, Santana, Amar, hi, Reshma, good morning. Now I haven't taken the temperature today, but it would be definitely less than yesterday's. I had nothing, I had just cold. I don't know how the fever came, and it basically made me bedridden for the entire day yesterday. Sorry. Let us start with this article. This appeared, I guess, on September 16th in the explained section of the newspaper. It talks about topography and climate change, which is behind the heavy rainfall in Himalayas. So first we'll understand the topography, which relates to part of geography syllabus, and then we'll understand climate change, which relates to part of environmental. And both of them had a combined effect on increased rainfall in the state of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. So how these two factors are acting in togetherness to lead to a greater rainfall, that is the subject of our today's discussion. Now, the context of this development is that the recent spate of disasters in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh is a reminder to all of us that the Himalayas are becoming a global, not just global, but also an Indian climate hotspot. And in this reality, we are going to dissect this today's article, okay? Now, first of all, what you have to understand is a bit of a background. Now, in the past few weeks, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh have witnessed not just very heavy rainfall, but instances of cloudburst. This happened in the capital city of the Uttarakhand, that is Dehradun, and it resulted into large amount of landslide, which also affected many popular tourist destinations in these two states. Now, Uttarakhand alone, at least 15 deaths happened due to landslides, and across northwestern India this year the rainfall in August was 34% above normal, and the overall monsoon season's rainfall has been surplus or more than average. It has been 30% more than average. What was the projected monsoon average of Indian Meteorological Department? It was 107% of long period average. As against this projection, the rainfall in the northern states have happened more than 30% of long period average. And you need to understand, rainfalls in the Himalayan states or in the hilly stations are very different from rainfalls in the plain areas. First of all, whenever rainfall happens in plain areas, the water can move away through the rivers, right? Similarly, in coastal areas, water can go back to sea. But same option is not available for Himalayan regions, right? So basically, due to heavy rainfall, which may happen in other parts of the country, it naturally would impact more on Himalayan region. So this is the first reason what happened. Now, why do hilly areas in general receive more rainfall? Let us understand these conditions. First is that the existence of active monsoon season. What happens in every monsoon season in India? The low pressure system that are formed over the mainland India, it leads to sucking of the moisture laden air from the water bodies like Arabian Sea as well as Bay of Bengal. But what happened this year was that these moisture laden winds, they traveled further north, right? So whenever these moisture laden winds, they arrive at mainland, they eventually lose their moisture, and basically after a few days they lose out on their rainfall potential. But when these moisture laden winds, they traveled further in the north, it intensified rainfall in the northernmost part of the country, that is in the Himalayan states. Similarly, there are several geographical factors also. In mountains, warm and moist air is forced to rise rapidly, and this is called as what kind of rainfall? Orographic rainfall. And this helps in building massive vertically developed clouds. Whenever the rainfall happened due to these clouds, it leads to intense localized precipitation. So first of all, there is a tendency that whenever water gets warm, it can capture more and more amount of moisture, and whenever water or the clouds rise above the air due to mountains or their interaction with mountains, this is called as orographic rainfall. And these moisture laden winds or the clouds, they lead to rainfall. So this is the geographical factor that has promoted heavy rainfall in the Himalayan states. Similarly, I told you we need to compare heavy rainfall in plains as well as in the region of Himalayas. Now, whenever places like Goa and Kerala, they often record more than 300 mm of rainfall in a day. But this does not lead to disruption. First of all, these are coastal areas, so water automatically can drain into the sea. But on the other hand, if such similar intensity of rainfall happens in Himalayan region, first of all, Himalayan regions have steep slope and they also have an unstable soil. So water, it trickles down the ground, leading to the amount of landslides as well as amount of floods. Similarly, unstable soil, wherever the soil is unstable, it leads to huge the siltation of the soil, it drains out with the water and it leads to landslides, right? So this is the problem that is associated with the hilly stations. Similarly, recent example, let us consider that Udhampur in JNK district, which witnessed 630 mm rainfall in 24 hours, which is equivalent to a city of Gujarat, Rajkot's yearly rainfall. Similarly, Leh and Ladakh, it witnessed 59 mm of rainfall in 48 hours, which is a record as far as Ladakh is concerned since 1973. So this year, the quantum of rainfall has been high, and because of other factors which we'll cover, the destructions have been high, right? Now, those who haven't liked this video, please go ahead and like this video, okay? आज तो like बनता है. Now, why are hilly regions more vulnerable? First is the topography. I told you hilly regions have steep slopes, which means rainfall does not percolate down the soil. Rather, it moves down the slope, rushing down, carrying soil, rocks and debris with it. And this is the primary factor of landslides. Similarly, intense rainfall destabilizes the slopes, which triggers landslides as well as instances of flash floods. Where have you seen instances of flash floods? Once again, in areas like Kedarnath, which are basically on the upper reaches of Himalaya. Similarly, due to human development, the rivers that were existing back then have been blocked somewhat, right? So this excess water has nowhere to go, and as a result, the debris, they spill into the settlement which have been created on the areas where earlier there was river used to flow. Similarly, this damages modern infrastructure like roads, bridges and homes. That is why even this year you saw landslide which happened in Jai Mata Vaishno Devi. It led to death of many people, more than 30 people, right? Similarly, there is a factor which takes into account the vulnerability of disasters. Now, not all extreme events would be equally damaging, but what are the factors that can create damages? It leads to slope vulnerability, soil type, or whether debris enters the river. So, suppose if the debris enters the river, it would do away with the problem. But what if there is no river? Where would debris go? Naturally into the human settlements, creating problems, right? So, this factors in the kind of disaster vulnerability. So disaster vulnerability is high as far as hilly states are concerned as compared to coastal and plain areas, right? Now, what is the factor of climate change in this regard? First of all, there has been an instance which is called as changing of western disturbances. Now, western disturbances, they originate in the Mediterranean Sea and they carry moisture-laden winds to the Indian subcontinent. Now, traditionally, western disturbances have been known to create winter precipitation in India, and it is very beneficial for crops like wheat, right? But this year we have seen that the western disturbances, which in normal circumstances during the time of summers, they move northwards and north of Himalaya. So they do not create problems as far as summer rainfall in India is concerned. But this year we saw these western disturbances shift southwards, south from the Himalayas, and it interacted with the existing monsoon system in India, intensifying the amount of rainfall that happened in Himalayas. And this is the major factor that has led to high amount of rainfall this year. In addition to more moisture-laden winds from Bay of Bengal and Western Arabian Sea reaching the northern part of the country. Similarly, there is an instance of global warming which has not just plagued India but entire globe. Now, what happens with global warming? That the overall temperatures rise, and with rise in temperature, the ability of the wind to capture moisture also increases. So, atmosphere's moisture holding capacity increases with rise in temperature, and whenever moisture holding capacity of atmosphere increases, it leads to more intense rainfall. So, this is another factor, that is the impact of global warming. Similarly, there are linkages with respect to Arctic climate. Now, more the ice which melts in Arctic, it may be altering the global circulation, further complicating the Himalayan rainfall patterns, right? Similarly, more waters would be available in the seas, and this would lead to creation of more moisture. And what is the future outlook? Meteorologists have warned that more frequent cloudburst and heavy rainfall event which would happen with interspersed with long dry spells. So earlier, the rainfall which was somewhat well distributed, now this would be changing to a more concentrated, localized and erratic rainfall. So this is the change that is happening with respect to monsoon. Earlier it was well distributed. Now it will become more concentrated, that more rainfall would happen in a particular area. It would be more localized, that some areas would witness higher rainfall, other areas in the close vicinity would not witness rainfall. Similarly, the distribution of rainfall would be erratic. As earlier the monsoons were well spread across the period of 3 to 4 months, now they would become more sporadic and more erratic in nature. For example, first few days would have very great rainfall, then there would be a long dry spell followed by several short instances of rainfall, right? So this is creating problems. Now let us assume your overall rain remains the same, but when huge amount of rainfall happens within a few days, it does away with the moisture retaining capacity of soil, leading to floods, right? So this is how climate change is affecting how much the rainfall and what will be the effect of rainfall would happen. Now there is another factor, that is human induced factors or man-made factors. First, with increase in population and development, we have seen rising instances of deforestation and urbanization, and because of this, we have seen losses of natural vegetation, and this creates a situation where the slope stability, particularly in the hilly areas, reduces. Similarly, there had been instances of unplanned construction. Road, hotels, hydropower projects, they have been created to harness the potential of hilly states, but this has disturbed the already fragile ecosystem or slopes that were prevailing in the region. Similarly, we have seen encroachment of river floodplains. Even in Yamuna, which is a river flowing through Delhi, you will see many modern infrastructure that has been created in the floodplains of Yamuna, right? So this highlights that due to increased population pressure, settlements have been created in what otherwise is known as hazard prone zone, and this has increased the overall vulnerability of the area to the natural disasters. Similarly, in hilly areas, we have seen there is a intense amount of tourism pressure, especially in the summer months. For example, whenever I go to Himalayan states, most of the cars that I see belongs to UP, Haryana, Delhi, Chandigarh, etc. Right? So you can understand how many amount of tourists they actually visit these Himalayan states, particularly in the summer months. And this also creates stress on the already fragile infrastructure, right? So this is the entire problem that I have told you related to the rainfall, or why it has led to intense amount of rainfall in the Himalayan region. Now there is a practice question that I want you to solve. First, it states that the recent floods in the landslide in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh highlights increasing climate vulnerability of the Himalayas. Discuss the geographical and climatic factors that has made the Himalayan region prone to such events. Now, naturally, you'll have to divide your answers into 3 categories: intro, body and conclusion. Please do not write news when it comes to introduction, right? Write something factual, write something conceptual. Please do not write the news, as against we discuss it in the class. Please do not write news what happened in the introduction. Body, you already know, you'll have to discuss both of them. And conclusion, whenever you are not able to find a conclusion, just try to summarize your body in 3 to 4 lines. That would become your conclusion, right? Well, Mediterranean disturbances, let me tell you, I'm very poor with drawing, so please excuse me. Suppose this is the map of India. This is the map of India, right? Imagine this is the northern part of our country, okay? Now, in the winter months, the moisture laden winds, that is called as western disturbances, they appear in the northern part of the country, and this is very beneficial for rainfall. But normally in summer months, these moves northward, and the rain system in India at that time is replaced by southwest monsoon, right? So this is a normal condition. In normal summer months, these winds would be blowing northwards of Himalaya in the Tibetan region. But this year, these monsoon winds have reached south of Himalaya, that is into India. So 2 kinds of river system have been combined, rainfall system, that is 1 and 2, and this has led to addition or more rainfall in India. Understood this, Yashi? Excuse me, my drawing is very bad. That is why I don't draw quite often in the classes. Okay. Now moving to the next article, this talks about the court in Delhi. It has set aside an order which asked the journalist to take down some online article against the Adani enterprise. So what is this article dealing about? What is the main issue? We'll discuss. Now the context, a Delhi trial court on September the 6th passed an ex parte ad interim injunction restraining journalists, that is Pranjoy Guha Thakurta and others, from publishing and circulating any defamatory content against the Adani enterprise. Now you can realize this was a judgment given last year by a Delhi High Court. What does the word ex parte means? Ex parte means only with the presence of one party. So this order was passed only after hearing the grievances of the Adani enterprise. Now, whenever the core case has been heard, you hear both sides. But in some emergency like situation, only when one party approaches, courts can pass an order. And what is an ad interim injunction? Ad interim injunction means a temporary injunction. Injunction basically is a form of order. So court basically passed an order which prevented journalists from publishing any articles which actually defamed a private company known as Adani Enterprise. So this was the context of our today's discussion. Now, background of this issue, what happened actually is that this order not just allowing or preventing these journalists from publishing an article, it also gave Adani Enterprise Limited the power to list certain links which they wanted to be taken down, and within 36 hours. So this effectively gave the private company the power to decide what public information it wants to be posted online. So this is very bad something, right? Similarly, after challenges brought by many journalists, a district court later on this year, it set aside this gag order which was passed by a Delhi court. So this is the context of our today's discussion. You understood what happened, or should I repeat it again? Should I repeat it again, or have you understood it? Understood. Okay. Can I put it in a line? Obviously I can. Now what happened? A Delhi court gave a temporary order, and this order was given to journalists that they can't put any content online which is defamatory of Adani Enterprise Limited. Similarly, it also gave Adani Enterprise Limited a power to list URLs or websites which host certain content which Adani Enterprise founds itself as defamatory. So Adani Enterprise can list certain website on which content has been there, and they have to be removed within 36 hours. So this was an order given by Delhi court. Now obviously journalists, they were aggrieved of this order, so they went to a higher court in Delhi, and this higher court in Delhi negated the order given by the Delhi court. Got this? Baga? Now what is the key concept behind this? There was a judgment given in 1891 in England known as Bonnard versus Perryman judgment, and this judgment is very important as far as democracy is concerned. Now what happened is that injunctions or orders passed in defamation cases should be granted only if the defendant has no defense. Now suppose if you are putting any information online, and if someone claims that this information is defamatory, what kind of defense do you have? Don't you think if you're reporting the truth, that would not make this article defamatory in nature? Suppose if you stole something and I'm reporting that person X is stealing something. So person X would say that, no, I'm not stealing anything and this person is trying to defame me. But when I bring the evidences that this person is actually stealing something and I'm just publishing this information, it won't be a defamatory information. It would have been defamatory if I would not have been able to prove those allegations, right? So this judgment in England said that defamation cases can only happen when the defendant is not able to prove the cases, and mere suspension of defamation is not a sufficient ground so that you can curb the freedom of press that is given in a democracy. So this judgment in a way protects press freedom and ensures that judiciary is not able to pass any order without a solid ground. And what is solid ground here? Only when I publish an information which is false in nature, then only I can be tried for defamation. If I am actually reporting a wrongdoing, that does not make that I am trying to defame someone. Okay. And what do you think is a responsibility of reporters? Originally, reporters should report what is actually happening. But if they are publishing false articles, which happens a lot in India and also in other countries, that is defamation. Understood the difference? गुड मॉर्निंग जर्नल ऑफ एन एस्पिरेंट बेंजीर एंड महामीम. आज लेट हो गए सब, क्या बात है? So you know not difference between what is defamation and what is press freedom. Press freedom is I should have a freedom to report anything which is true, but that does not include I should report anything which is false. Okay, बेंजीर आज वो कहाँ गई, मामीम कहाँ गई? Understood the difference between defamation and press freedom? Feeling low and motivated, what happened, Benzeer? Is your health all right? Does this qualify for infringement of press? Now, you'll have to understand two things. Freedom of speech and expression, it means that you can say anything. But do you think you can make a false statement and call it as a freedom of speech and expression? Freedom of speech and expression means you can say anything, but only when it is true. It does not mean you can say anything when it is false. So this is not covered under freedom of speech and expression. So whenever you report anything false about someone, that person can file a defamation case on you. Remember the instance when Arvind Kejriwal used to say सब मिले हुए हैं जी, ये चोर है वो चोर है. So most of the politicians belonging to different parties, they filed a case of defamation against Arvind Kejriwal. And when this matter reached court, the court asked Arvind Kejriwal to prove these allegations. And when Arvind Kejriwal was not able to prove these allegations, he had to apologize to those people. Why? Because these were defamatory in nature. Got this? So whenever press is not sure about anything, press says that X person said this, Y person said this. They don't give their analysis, because if they would give their analysis, that would put them under the charges of defamation. So they can only report about something which they are sure about. Got this? Well, Gaurav, to be frank, I'm not an expert in legal matters. It shouldn't be a writ, ideally. Injunction is basically a court order that you can get. Now, Supreme Court of India also follows this principle that I told you about England. Earlier, it overturned Delhi High Court's similar interim injunction against Bloomberg, which was asked to take down an article which it wrote on Zee Entertainment. Now, pre-trial injunctions which is given under defamation is basically an exception, not the rule. But you can give this injunction in an order only when you must establish that the content is basically malicious or false in nature. An ex parte injunction can be given only when non-grant of these injunction causes greater injustice than granting of this injunction, right? So suppose if I'm an enterprise and I'm doing everything right, but suppose out of malicious intent, some reporters publish a false information on my organization. So naturally, my organization's stock market performance would suffer. investors would be wary of investing in my company, so I can actually go to court. I can say that all of those reports that these people have published, it is actually false in nature. So when those people are not able to establish the truth about those reports, they will have to take this down. Otherwise, they will be punished under defamation cases. But court should also ensure that it should not stifle public debate by taking a cavalier or an upper hand approach by passing the orders. What is the responsibility of court? Court has to balance both right to freedom of speech and expression, which includes right of freedom given to press, and also should ensure that defamation of any individual or company shouldn't happen. So this is basically the responsibility of the court. And this order of the Supreme Court stated that the injunction against any article should be given only when you are able to establish that the information published on those articles are false. Otherwise, you should let those articles be public and not remove them. Now, Adani Enterprise cases, it issued a blanket gag order against journalists, and it allowed Adani Enterprise to seek removal of certain articles also within 36 hours. And it also prevented journalists from publishing unverified defamatory reports. So this was the order given by Delhi court in last year. Now, the issue regarding this order was that the restraint that was imposed on journalists even before the case was heard was unconstitutional in nature. You can impose restrictions, but after this case or the judgment comes. And this was an interim order given before the judgment came. Similarly, court did not examine the defamatory content. It only heard the opinion of Adani Enterprise and passed this judgment. And it delegated power to plaintiff, that is Adani Enterprise, to curate public information. If Adani Enterprise itself has the power to decide which article should be published and not, it basically is imposing an unfair or unreasonable restrictions on the right to freedom of speech and expression. And because of this order was faulty, district court later on set aside this order after justices and the journalists challenged it. Now, what is the constitutional angle in this particular case? First of all, Article 19(1)(a) provides right to freedom of speech and expression, but this is not an absolute right. This is qualified based on reasonable restrictions, which also includes defamation, right? Now, prior restraint, basically preventing publication before even the trial has completed, it is unconstitutional in nature. Why is it unconstitutional in nature? Because you are not having the authority or ability to hear both of the sides. Only you can pass an order only when you hear both of the sides and the due process is followed. And you are imposing heavy burden on those seeking restraints to prove necessity. So first of all, it is the reporters who will have to prove that whatever they have published is actually true in nature, which sometimes can be quite high as far as reporters is concerned. So you can let this due process happen and then only pass a judgment. Now, what is the adequate criteria in which you can file for defamation, or what are the adequate criteria in cases which can prevent defamation cases being on you? First of all, if you're reporting the truth, then no defamation case, obviously. Similarly, if you're fairly commenting on matters of public interest, that is also not defamation. So suppose any journalist who criticizes a Supreme Court judgment after this judgment is passed does not qualify as a contempt or a defamation of Supreme Court, right? So this is allowed in India because you are fairly commenting on it, you are giving your opinion. Similarly, it necessitates that whenever these defamation cases are being heard, you should hear both of the parties, including journalists, before passing of such order. And Adani case order, this did not include hearing of journalists. It was an ex parte order, which means only one party was heard, that was Adani Enterprise. So this is why justice was not seen to be delivered. It was not delivered properly. Now, what is the judicial principle? First of all, pre-trial injunction in defamation case can only be brought whenever there is a high threshold, which means only jab sar se pani upar chala gaya, then only you can pass such orders. And defendant's defense, that is truth and fair comment, is bound to fail. So you can pass an injunction only when defendant is unable to prove that his reporting is actually true. Similarly, if content itself is malicious or false, then also you can pass an injunction order highlighting that this is defamatory. Otherwise, it would have a chilling effect on press and it curbs public debate. Any idea what is called as chilling effect? Now, suppose if someone is saying the truth and I punish him, don't you think other people would be afraid of reporting the truth? So this is called as chilling effect. If without that punishment, truth might have been reported, but due to afraid or because of fear of punishment, people are not even reporting the truth. That is called as chilling effect. And in freedom of speech and expression, we don't want chilling effect to happen, right? Understood this? Any doubts in this article? Otherwise, you can solve this question. You know, in reality, what happens? Journalists might take money from other corporation and then report bad things about a third company. This is very common. But you can't let certain instances do away with the press freedom in India. We are living in democracy and press should have every right to report the truth. But they shouldn't also misuse this right. Yes, it is a part of Article 19, 1A of the Constitution. This question, sorry. Yes, option A. Now, one thing I wanted to tell you, tomorrow is 20th of September. And for students who are looking to give exams next year in 2026, this is your last chance, last opportunity to take admission in any one of our courses. After that, we'll only offer courses for 2027 and 2028. So students who are really serious about 2026 attempt should consider joining our courses. And when you are going to join our courses, please remember to use this code ATS Live, because this code offers you maximum amount of discounts on all the courses. So not just this foundation courses, but if you are taking optional courses, state PCSC courses, judiciary courses, you can apply this code and you'll get the maximum discount. For example, on this course, the discount you're getting is worth rupees 7,000, which is a lot of money, right? Now moving to this next article, it appeared in today's Indian Express explained section, and it talks about the defense pact Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Islamic Republic of Pakistan is signed. Now, what is the official name of India? Can anyone tell me? For economy, not mandatory. For economy, only you need is 11th and 12th NCRT. For economy, I can say that. For other courses, no, it is not official name. Yes, Republic of India. Well, India's legal name is India and Bharat because it is given in Article 1. But the official name of India is Republic of India. Any idea why it is called as Republic of India? What makes a country republic? पासपोर्ट पे क्या लिखा होता है? How many of you have passports? Or how many of you don't have passports? Yes, because head of state in India, who's president, they are elected. Otherwise, it would have been a monarchy, like kingdom. So, why is Saudi Arabia called as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Why is it called as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? बनवा लो धीरज, बाहर नहीं जाना क्या? Someone was asking now, Moving inside the country was a part of Article 19. Moving outside the country is a part of Article 21. Menaka Gandhi case. Why is Saudi Arabia called as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Any idea? Because it is a monarchy. And why is Pakistan called as Republic of Pakistan? The official name of Pakistan is not just Republic of Pakistan but Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Any idea why is Pakistan called as Islamic Republic of Pakistan? Well, India is a secular country. India does not, as a institution, or India's constitution does not prescribe any religion as a state religion. But Pakistan's state religion is Islam. So that is why it is Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Because Islam in Pakistan is the state religion. On the other hand, India is a secular country. We do not have a state religion. Yes. Got this? Now, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, they've signed a mutual defense pact. And if you read this mutual defense pact, it stated any aggression against either the country would be considered as aggression against both. So, would this mean in future if India and Pakistan are in conflict, then Saudi Arabia would come to save Pakistan? Do you think is it true? Legally and in reality, do you think is it true? No. Legally they should or they can, but in reality they won't. Why? We'll discuss it today. And why is this kind of a defense pact significant? First of all, it is a first major Arab defense pact with a country who has nuclear arms with it. That is Pakistan. But this comes after certain developments that has happened in West Asia, not in Indian subcontinent. This happened because recently, as we have covered, Israel bombed Qatar. So there was a possibility that tomorrow, if Israel comes after Saudi Arabia, America is not going to save them because America is also a close ally of Qatar and it is also a close ally of Israel. So how did US, being a close ally of both these parties, then how did Israel was able to attack Qatar? So basically, Saudi Arabia is trying to hedge its bet by signing a defense pact with Pakistan that kal ko mujhe zarurat padi or if tomorrow I need it, please come to my rescue. Okay, so this is basically more of a symbolic gesture rather than a reality. Okay. Now, historical background, these instances have will suggest you that both defense forces of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, they have been very close to each other. For example, in 1960s, Pakistani troops were deployed in Saudi Arabia when Egypt was in war with Yemen. Similarly, Pakistani special forces assisted during Grand Mosque seizure in Mecca. Similarly, in 1982, a bilateral security cooperation agreement was signed between these two countries, which allowed for training, advisory support and deployment of Pakistani personnel in Saudi Arabia's Air Force. And Saudi Arabia has been a buyer of Pakistani made arms. Also, presently there is an ongoing joint military cooperation which includes training of soldiers as well as exchanges of best practices. So in total, what this slide suggests that both of the armies and defense forces have been quite close to each other. Now, what is the significance of this defense pact for Pakistan? First of all, what Pakistan lacks, any idea, in addition to common sense? Anything else that Pakistan lacks? Can you tell me what does Pakistan does not have? They neither have common sense nor they have money. So what Pakistan needs is money. Who has money? Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia can provide investment and funding in terms of Pakistan's fiscal crisis, right? Similarly, it enhances Pakistan's role as a pan-Islamic security provider. Now, whenever Pakistan through unfair means obviously came up with a nuclear weapon, it stated that we are the only Islamic country in the world who has nuclear weapons. And it used to show off its nuclear weapons that tomorrow if any Islamic country needs, they will provide them with nuclear weapons. But in reality, this is all farce. For example, when Iran was fighting with US, so do you think Pakistan has claimed to rescue of Iran? No, right? So do you think it will actually come to rescue of Saudi Arabia? No, it is in this partnership just because of Saudi's money. Similarly, it potentially enables Pakistan to buy US weapons. Now, Pakistan, since time immemorial, has been able to buy US weapons, and US has also been comfortable in providing weapons to Pakistan because US is a country who just wants good business, irrespective of the kind of country it gets into business with. Now, what happens is that when Pakistan does not have funds to buy weapons, so do you think when Saudi Arabia provides Pakistan the fund, it will be able to buy weapons from US? Yes. So Pakistan can do so using Saudi's investment. Similarly, it also strengthens the military credibility of Pakistan beyond South Asia. So this is what in it for Pakistan. Now let us understand why Saudi Arabia signed this deal. First of all, Saudi Arabia, the region where Saudi Arabia is located, has been one of the most volatile regions in the world. Recently, there has been a conflict that Saudi Arabia was engaged with, indirectly with Iran, directly with Houthi militias who are there in Yemen. Now, because of Israel's regional action, where it has been in conflict with as many as 7 nations in the region, there is also a possibility that in future, both Saudi and Israel might come into conflict. So in that way, Saudi is trying to protect itself by bolstering its security by signing a defense pact. Similarly, diversify Saudi's dependence solely on US. Right now, US has been a net security guarantor of Saudi Arabia. And US states that you don't need to develop nuclear weapons yourself. We are there now. But in reality, I told you, right? Qatar is good friends with US. Similarly, US is also good friends with Israel. But this influence of US over these two countries still was not able to prevent Israel's bombing of Qatar. And same is the case if you remove Qatar from this image and take Saudi Arabia. So what makes you think that in future Israel won't bomb Saudi Arabia? So therefore it is trying to diversify its partnership away from US because US can't be relied, right? Similarly, it is a symbolic embrace of a nuclear armed Pakistan as a deterrence partner. That right now other regions or other members in the world or there in the region do not have nuclear weapons except obviously Israel. So who is the alternative? Pakistan. So that is why they are trying to see that, now we have a backing of Pakistan. Ye hai mere piche. Okay. So this is the strategic significance of Saudi Arabia. Now, how does India fit into this picture? This also you need to know. Okay. Now, first of all, India's official stance, the statement that was given by the spokesperson of MEA, they stated that India was aware of this agreement and Saudi Arabia previously has informed India also. But they are studying the implications that this kind of an impact or this kind of an agreement would impact India's national security and regional stability. Now, there are obviously many concerns that India has. First of all, this pact may embolden Pakistani military, that हवा भर रहे हो Pakistani military में और हवा भर रहे हो तो वो किसको परेशान करेगा? They will disturb us only, right? Similarly, there is also a risk that using Saudi Arabia's financing indirectly, it may strengthen Pakistan's military posture because it might be able to buy weapons from USA, or it might even use this financing to perpetrate terrorist activities in India. So this is the risk that India sees in this kind of an arrangement. First, that it will embolden Pakistani military. It will make Pakistani military overconfident. Then they would be requiring another beating from us. And otherwise, they would also pose a risk for emboldening Pakistan's military posture, where it could buy US-based weapon, or it could even use these funds to perpetrate terrorism in India. Right? So this is an actual reality that India faces. But does it mean that Saudi Arabia would come to rescue Pakistan in case of future Operation Sindoor like conflict happens between India and Pakistan? The answer is no. Why? Because we ourselves have a very robust relationship with Saudi Arabia, and this robust relationship has been solidified in form of strategic partnership. Similarly, even if you see the bilateral trade between these two countries, Saudi Arabia is India's 5th largest trading partner, where Saudi's exports to India's stands at more than 32 billion. So do you think they would jeopardize their key export market, that is India? The answer is no. So it does not make military sense, it does not make diplomatic sense, and it does not even make economic sense. Similarly, Saudi Arabia is cautious on India's Pakistan dispute. Suppose Pulwama 2019 terrorist attack, which killed as many as 40 personnel of CRPF, Saudi Arabia condemned it. It stayed silent when India conducted a retaliatory strikes on Balakot terrorist camps. Similarly, it was muted when India abrogated Article 370. And also Pakistan, India and Saudi Arabia share some common interest. This is ensuring energy security, countering terrorism, promoting investment, as well as ensuring welfare of diaspora, that India has a lot of diaspora in Saudi Arabia. So this is why these are counterbalancing factors. Now, what is the implication of this kind of an arrangement on regions, geopolitics and regional stability? First of all, Pakistan's role will expand from South Asia, and it would also be seen also formally to be ensuring Gulf security. Now, this agreement also reflects that countries in the Middle East, they are afraid or they are losing trust on US's influence in the region. Similarly, Saudi and Iran, they were trying to mend their relation after US forced them to, or China forced them to, but now this may worsen Saudi-Iran's tension. Now, Saudi has been emboldened because of the pact it signed with Pakistan. So, effectively, Saudi has access to Pakistan's nuclear power, whereas Iran does not have similar kind of capability. So, whenever two parties, they are equally placed, they won't fight a war. But when someone gets strengthened and someone else's gets weakened, the power dynamics forces the more aggressor one to commit wars. Similarly, India must safeguard its strategic partnership with Riyadh while monitoring this defense ties, which is the implication for India. Understood? Any doubt in this article? Now solve this question. This is a very recent question on the regional dynamics of Saudi as well as Arab states. Pakistan is that kind of a child who requires regular beating. वो हिंदी में वर्ड बोलते हैं ना, औकात दिखाना पड़ता है, तो पाकिस्तान को वही दिखाना पड़ता है टाइम टू टाइम. इंडियन गवर्नमेंट डिड नॉट यूज टू डू दिस. दैट इज व्हाई वी फेस टेररिज्म फॉर सो लॉन्ग. नाउ सी, फॉर द पास्ट फ्यू years, the outlook of government has changed. That whenever an attack happens, even the public demand government to take actions against Pakistan. And had this been the case for the past few decades, we would have seen terrorism eradicated from our country. You can't create dialogue with people who are perpetrating terrorism. वो बोलते हैं ना हिंदी में, लातों के भूत बात से नहीं मानते. So Pakistan is that लात का भूत. You should kick them. Yes, Arab Peace Initiative was mediated by Saudi Arabia, but it was not signed by Israel. Israel has established diplomatic relations with some Arab states after the signing of Abraham Accords. And Israel today has a formal relationship with UAE. So first is right, second isn't, and option C is right. Yes. Now, which one of the following is not a member of Gulf Cooperation Council? We haven't covered GCC right now, but even looking at the option, you should be able to mark the answer correctly. Yes, Reshma Sarang, after a long time, option A is right. So see, sometimes your common sense can help you solve the questions, right? So guess करना रहता तो क्या करते? Obviously Iran करते, right? So this is how, unlike Pakistan, you should let your common sense prevail. Sometimes whenever you face such kind of questions which you don't know or you can't recall, you can utilize your common sense to pick the right answer. Now 2 articles are left and it is 11:57. Why don't we cover the articles tomorrow, okay? This notes will be available on the channel ATS Live, okay? two articles are big articles and we'll cover it tomorrow. No need to worry. So have a good day. And yes, at 6 p.m. the video of first economy simplified would go live. Okay. Yes, I will get back soon. Thank you, everyone. And like this video also.